Hey everybody, Chris the old ass retro gamer here. It is time for another pickups video! I'm currently on collecting hiatus.
Damn!
Why? Because Gen Con is coming up in August. Gen Con is a board, card, and tabletop gaming convention that I go to almost every year. I've been going since I do believe 2009. It is super fun, and I want to be able to have money to spend while I'm there. So collecting, see ya later. But don't forget, I did pick up a lot of great games at Gen Con last year, so be prepared for that pickups video in the future. Hopefully, my pickups will be just as awesome as the ones from last year, hopefully. So all the pickups I'm going to show off today are the ones that stop at my collecting hiatus beginning, going all the way back to the tail end of the last pickups video, which was where I had that great bonus from my work, as well as my tax return. So I managed to pick up quite a few awesome games. Let's get into it.
Yes!
Starting with the NES. One of my all-time favorite NES games, finally added it to the collection. Skate or Die 2, The Search for Double Trouble. I know a lot of people cannot stand this game. I don't see why. I've always found it to be extremely fun. The music is rad as hell, and instead of being just a straight-out skateboarding game like the original Skate or Die was, this one is more of a skateboarding platformer, and I thought that was great. I found it to be extremely fun, and I still do. Snake, Rattle, and Roll, which is a game by Rare. As you know, I'm trying to get a complete Rare collection. I don't know if I'll be completely successful, but I will try. But this is a very unique isometric platformer. I love it. Rocket Ranger, which is by Cinemaware. It's a port of an old PC game that everyone raves about, but unfortunately, from what I understand, the port to the NES did not come out as successfully as everyone hoped. But I still find it fun, even though it is really weird. There's a lot of different play styles in it. Not all of them work, but for what it is, it's not bad. Which leads us to the Rocketeer, which for a licensed game is actually very fun. It is a simple platformer, but done extremely well. Uses the license okay, but for the most part, I think it's pretty fun. Star Trek The Next Generation, because I gotta get all those Star Trek games. Boldly go, bitches.
I didn't expect you to say that.
Shut up, Wesley!
The Legend of Kage, Tiny Toon Adventures. For a licensed game, this one is super awesome. It is a platformer that uses the license really well. It is super fun, and it's by Konami. They know their shit. Flying Dragon, The Secret Scroll. This is part of that series that John Riggs was talking about in the WTF Games video. He was talking about the third game in the series, which is for the Super Nintendo, which he hates. But this is, I think, the first game in the series, and I remember playing this back in the day and loving it. It is actually like a fighting game, but it is very tactical. You have to hit your opponents in specific areas. And I remember it being really fun and very challenging, but, you know, these are NES games. They're supposed to be like that, but I loved it. Strider, which is a port of the original arcade game to the NES, and a lot of changes had to be made in order to get it to work on an NES, and it didn't. As far as I'm concerned, this game is pretty terrible and kind of unplayable. It is just really, really bad. Finally got me a copy of Super C. I actually like this one more than the original Contra. Music, graphics, everything was top-notch for when it came out. I love it. I love it so much. And I also managed to get a 1-2 punch of horror goodness. Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Yes, they're by LJN, but I don't care. I always had a soft spot for Friday the 13th because it is actually a lot of fun. It is really kooky design-wise. I mean, I don't understand the directional bullshit with the map and some of the weapons, and it's just zombies and Friday the 13th night. But whatever, there had to be enemies to fight. I always found it very fun, super hard, kind of unfair at times, but whatever. But A Nightmare on Elm Street, that's where it's at. This one is developed by Rare. It has a lot of their great flourishes. The music is amazing. The controls are a little wonky, but the game itself is a platformer that can be played with 4 players simultaneously, which is awesome. I still love this game to this very day, and I don't understand all the hate it gets just because LJN released it. Finally got me a copy of Excitebike. So excited to have it back in my collection. It still holds up. I loved it back in the day. I love the create a track editor that's in here. And Super Mario Brothers! It has taken me so long to be able to get a in-box copy complete of Super Mario Brothers. I don't know why this game is such a hot commodity. It is like the most common game out there for the console. I got back into collecting at the end of 2013. It has taken up until now to be able to find a box copy of this at a decent price. So WTF internet, this game is timeless. It still holds up. It is still super fun. Super Mario Maker can attest to that. And I finally have all 3 of the original Mario games for my NES collection.
Yes! Yes!
So if you saw my Midwest Gaming Classic 2016 video, you will know that I got back into collecting Sega Master System games at that convention. I figured now that I own a Retro Freak and it has the ability to play Sega Master System and Sega Mark III games, now would be as good a time as any to get back into the Master System collecting. So I used the Midwest Gaming Classic as the jumping off point, and right after that I got into it pretty heavily. Managed to get quite a few awesome games for the console. Rastan, which is an awesome action platformer that is a port of an arcade game that I loved when I was a kid. There was a Greek restaurant that we used to go to all the time that had one of the coin ops in it. I played it all the time. I played it as much as I possibly could. I sucked at it, but I'm super glad to have this in my collection now, even though I'm not able to play any of these games so far because I haven't bought that adapter for my Retro Freak yet, but I want to have things to be able to play when that thing does show up. Lord of the Sword, which is an adventure role-playing game. Spellcaster, which is another adventure role-playing game. Alien Syndrome, which is a port of an arcade game that I was a huge fan of when I was a kid, and I wanted to get the best version of it available for a console because there is an NES version available that was released by Tengen, and I remember having that back in the day, and I don't remember it being all that great. Everyone says that the Master System version is the one to have, so there it is. Miracle Warriors, Seal of the Dark Lord, which is another adventure role-playing game. Zillion 1 and 2. Ghost House, My Hero, and my personal favorite, Transbot. Also managed to get a few Game Boy games. Not a whole lot, mind you, but just enough. Alleyway, which is like a Breakout clone, but you play as little Mario in this little ship. Solar Striker, which is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. One of the games that I got pretty early on in the Game Boy's lifespan is also one of my favorites, even though it is not very fondly remembered, and I understand why. Fist of the North Star. I love reading the manga that this is based on. I thought it was super awesome and super violent, and I was hoping some of that would be in the game, but it turned out to not be the case. But it is a one-on-one fighting game, one of the earliest one-on-one fighting games. It doesn't exactly hold up as well as I remember, but I mean, it's still cool to have because of the nostalgia factor. Star Trek 25th Anniversary. It's kind of a port of the NES game that came out at the same time. There's like shooter levels in it now where you're playing as the Enterprise, which is kind of cool.
Well, fascinating is a word I use for the unexpected.
Let's get into the Sega Genesis now. So when I got that bonus from work as well as my tax return around the same time, I really wanted to knock a few really big Genesis games off of my want list. Amazing Saga Mutant Fighter. I had this back when it first came out. I thought it looked really amazing. I was really big into anime at the time, so this was like right up my alley. It's a really cool anime-esque action game. For the most part, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, but when you get to a boss, it turns into a one-on-one fighting game. And it is super fun. It is really cool. The characters look amazing. I love the art of the whole thing. This is like a diamond in the rough for the Genesis. Really made an effort to get a copy of Gunstar Heroes. I ended up getting this through Facebook. Some guy gave me a really good deal on his copy of it since he never played it anymore. And it's my treasure. Their first big game, super awesome, colorful. Music is great. The action is just super, super crazy. The controls are perfect. I love the combinations of the weapons. You can mix 2 different weapons together to get a new one. I love everything about this game. It is super awesome. Really hard, too. Steel Empire, which is a shoot-'em-up. That was released by Flying Edge, which is also Acclaim. So right off the bat, you've got like this stigma attached to it because, oh, Acclaim makes nothing but poo. Actually, this is one of the great games that they released. It is super fun, really colorful. I love the whole environment. It's all steampunky. Super awesome shooter. Toxic Crusaders. Was I the only one that was completely taken aback by the fact that someone thought a very hard R-rated B-movie by Troma was turned into something very kid-friendly for a Saturday morning cartoon?
Okay, you motherfucker!
Wow! Toxic Crusaders, Toxic Crusaders, Toxic. Oh my God!
I didn't know what to make of it. But whatever, this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that is actually very fun, very hard, kind of designed a little wonky, but I'm not going to fault it for that because it's just really unique that you've got a video game based off of like a hard R movie that has sex and gore and violence and all this crazy shit in it, but Yeah, good for you, Troma. You broke into the mainstream, at least a little bit. Asterix and the Great Rescue, which is based off of an old comic book series from France. I do believe it's actually still going. Cygnus Destroyer talked about this game in one of his videos, and I thought it looked really fun, so I said, why not? And I found a really cheap copy of it and said, let's roll this. And I ended up liking it a lot. Light Crusader, which is like this action-adventure game that's isometric that was developed by Treasure. Super awesome, colorful. I love the combat. I love everything about it. It is really cool, really underrated. You don't really hear anybody talking about this game like at all, but whatever. I think it's great. Lightning Force Quest for the Dark Star, which is actually Thunder Force 4. Great shoot 'em up that is super hard. Lots of great effects. Bullet Haley like crazy. It's just insane, but I love me some Thunder Force, so I had to have this in my collection. And lastly, this one I've been trying to get for the longest time, but it is so freaking expensive. I just said, you know what? This might just be one of those games I never get. When I ended up finding this for about half the price of what you would normally pay for it, I jumped at it like nobody's business. Contra Hard Corps. We all know that Treasure was made up of ex-Konami employees, and they created their own style of game, but Konami was like, hey, you know what? Fuck you. We're gonna do our own thing and copy you. See how you like them apples. And Contra Hard Corps is about as Treasure a game can be without actually being developed by Treasure. Really cool, lots of great effects that really push the Genesis to the limit. It is really super freaking hard, but it is super fun to play. I love it. I love it for its treasureness. Does that make any sense at all? Probably only to gamers who like games by Treasure. Yeah. Super Nintendo. Star Trek The Next Generation Futures Past, which is actually the exact same game as the Genesis Star Trek The Next Generation game, but better music, better controls, better graphics, better everything. The ship actually looks like what it does on the TV show when it goes to warp. It's awesome. I actually really, really like this game. Not owning a PC as a kid that could play really cool current-gen games, this was as good as it was going to get when it comes to the Star Trek stuff for me.
That was a difficult admission. Another man would have been humiliated to say those words.
Lethal Weapon. Yeah. Thunder Spirits. But when it came to getting that bonus from work as well as my tax return, I said there are 3 games that I really need to get my hands on, and I managed to get all 3. Shadowrun! I love this game. I played this so much when it first came out. I was a huge fan of Cyberpunk, so when this came out in video game form, I was so ecstatic because I knew about the RPG, the tabletop one. It's isometric RPG-ish, and it's also kind of adventure-y, so it's not like a typical RPG. Oh my god, it is so much fun. I love Shadowrun for the Super Nintendo. You have no idea. Super Turrican. The amount of hours I sank into this game when I first bought it. Wow. I probably could have completed college. The graphics, the controls, the music is so freaking awesome. This was my introduction to this franchise. And after that, I became a super huge fan. I got the one for the Genesis. I couldn't get enough of it. This game is so awesome. It is very Contra-esque, but goes beyond Contra in many different ways. It is so much fun. I love it. And then finally, this one game. I made a deal on Facebook for it, and I was super glad that I did, although it did end up coming from Jamaica.
Right near the beach. Boy!
Took almost a month to get here for some reason, but I finally have it, and I'm super happy that I do. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Nintendo and Square teamed up to make an RPG starring Mario. Damn. I am so sad they never went on with the series, although Paper Mario is about as close as you're ever going to get. But imagine Final Fantasy with Mario characters. It may sound goofy, but man, it works so freaking well. So happy. Managed to snag a few Sega CD games as well. Revenge of the Ninja, which is one of those quick time event cartoon games that were popular back then, like Road Avenger and Time Gal. I had this one back in the day and I always thought it was pretty fun. It still is. Sonic CD, which we all know is a classic for the Sega CD. One of the few games that we all know is a must-have, although there are plenty of diamonds in the rough for that console as well. This is one of like the 10 games that you absolutely have to have if you have a Sega CD, for good reason. It's probably the best Sonic game they've ever made. And Android Assault, which is a rad side-scrolling shoot-'em-up where you play as this robot who is just annihilating other robots. This is super awesome, and I got it for a great price. So now let's talk about the 3DO, my favorite underrated console of all time, even though I was mighty pissed at it at the beginning of its life. Battle Chess, which is an upgrade. I had just the disc only, but now I have it complete in box. Patank, which is a very unusual game. It is a pinball game from the point of view of the ball. Yes. Back when this game first came out, I saw a demo of it, and I said, wow, that is actually quite unique. I think I need that game in my life. And I bought it, and it is super fun. It is really frantic. Sometimes it's really hard to tell what is going on because the game moves so fast. But, I mean, it's a pinball game from the inside. I mean, damn. One of a kind. I don't think there's ever been anything made in this style ever again. So if you own a 3DO and you're looking for something new and strange, this is the game you want. And Burning Soldier, which is another one of those Starblade-esque games where you have like a pre-rendered video playing in the background, and enemies come in on top of those images and you have to shoot them. It is nothing special, but when it comes to those types of games, this one is actually one of the better ones. I really enjoyed this one back in the day, and I still do now. I did manage to get one Sega Saturn game, although it is an import. This is Mobile Suit Gundam Giran no Yabao. I think that's how you pronounce it. I can't be positive. Don't judge me. But for a Gundam game, this one is actually a strategy game, and a rather fun one at that. The learning curve is pretty high because it's in Japanese, obviously. But once you figure out what everything means, it's pretty cool. It is a lot of fun. I recommend this one if you can find it. I got this at a half-price books for $2. Okay. I haven't really been looking for Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance games, but I did manage to get two, one for each console. Project S11, which is a shmup that Radical Reggie recommended on his channel. He did one of his Breaking the Seal episodes about this one, and it had me intrigued because I wasn't aware that there were any shmups available that were worthwhile for the Game Boy Color, so when I saw that in his video, I said, must have it. And Wade Hickston's Counterpunch for the Game Boy Advance, which is a Punch-Out clone, but very cartoony. Haven't played it yet as it's still sealed, so I look forward to when I have some time to pop this one in and give it a go. So now it's time for some PlayStation 1 action. I actually had a pretty decent run for the PlayStation 1. Wasn't really looking for anything specific, but I would just keep coming across them at local stores, and I'd usually find some pretty good stuff. The long box of Air Combat, Wipeout XL, and Wipeout 3. Shooter Starfighter Sandvane. This was part of this budget collection that was really popular in Japan. They started bringing them out over here. And for the most part, these games were very cool for the price you were paying. Dune 2000. Death Trap Dungeon. One of my all-time favorite PlayStation games. MTV Music Generator. I actually made an entire album's worth of music with this game. I spent uncountable hours messing around with this thing, figuring out what it could do, and I created what I thought were some pretty cool techno-y style tracks. I tried to mix up the genres whenever I could, but you know, it was very limited in the genres available, so everything kind of always had like a techno beat or a rock beat, so I had a ton of fun playing this, and I'm actually looking forward to going back into it again. I'm going to have to go buy another friggin' stack of memory cards because one song would take up an entire memory card's worth of memory, especially if you decided to sample a CD, which I usually did. I made one that was Fifth Element based, I made one that was X-Files, I made one about Tomb Raider. I went completely batshit crazy with this thing. Too bad the sequels did not live up to this. Actress Taryn Manning, you might know as Pennsatucky from Orange is the New Black. I met her in person. She actually came to my apartment one time to be on my show Toasty that I used to do with my friend Josh. I can put the link to those two episodes we did with her in the description below if you want to check it out. Her band was called Boomcat. She actually, along with her brother, made an entire album using nothing but MTV Music Generator to create the music. If you're a person who likes creating things and not just playing them, this is top notch. Blasto. Lightning Rod of Hate for the Mortal Kombat crowd. Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Yes, the controls suck. But I love the story that was created for this game that introduced Quan Chi to the world and had a whole bunch of new characters in it, a lot of new villains. It does suck in a few ways, but I don't think it deserves all the hate that it gets. That should all be reserved for Mortal Kombat Special Forces. Treasures of the Deep, which is a game that scared the living piss out of me back in the day. Because of movies like Jaws, I have a phobia of the ocean. I will not go into any body of water if it is not filled with chlorine. How about that? This game is Very scary because you never know what you're going to run into. You could run into a giant shark. Playing something like this is actually kind of therapeutic in a way. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Finally got a complete version of Final Fantasy Tactics. I only had the disc before. Now I have the whole shebang. The original Colony Wars, I now have all 3 in the series. Jumping Flash 2, I owned the original back in the day and I loved it. It was a really cool 3D platformer from the point of view of you inside this big robot bunny. It was super fun. Sequels 10 times better. 10 times. Twisted Metal 2, which is one of my all-time favorite PlayStation 1 games. These next 2 games are pretty awful. There are stories behind them, which I always found pretty enjoyable, which I will probably talk about in a future video. Steel Harbinger, probably one of the worst games I ever played. And the other one is Time Commando by Activision. Another one that is just WTF all over it, but there's a funny story behind it, so stay tuned. So I've been trying to beef up my GameCube collection. Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2, TMNT Mutant Melee, Tales of Symphonia. Now that I have this, I can actually play the sequel for this that I have for the Wii. Donkey Konga, which I do believe is the last game I needed to complete the entire GameCube Konga set. If there was one thing the GameCube was known for, at least to me, there was no dearth of Legend of Zelda games. Ocarina of Time and Master Quest compilation. I've never played the Ocarina of Time Master Quest since I never really got all that far in the original Ocarina of Time to begin with. I kind of got stuck at one point and I just could not figure my way out, and I did not want to reset the game and start all over again. So yeah, I might have to try this out pretty soon. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which is probably my least favorite Zelda game. There's something about this game really rubbed me the wrong way, and most of it had to do with the art style. I just could not get into it at all. But I am willing to give it another shot because I hear that the game is actually pretty good, but don't expect that to happen anytime soon. And then finally, the one Zelda game that is, I think, the most sought after one when it comes to the GameCube, Twilight Princess. The Wii version is the one that everybody seems to know the most, but the GameCube version is the one that is actually the better version as far as I'm concerned. The game controls a lot better, it plays a lot better, it looks basically the same. Outside of the HD remaster, this is the version that you would want. Square Enix had another sale on their website. They actually seem to do it like every couple of months where they discount everything that they have from their backlog. Through that website sale, I managed to get The World Ends With You, Final Fantasy Tactics A2, and Dragon Quest 4 and 5. But I also managed to pick up a few others. Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, Still Hate You Toon Link, Thundercats. No one that I was acquainted with knew that there was a Thundercats game released. And when I posted the picture of this when I bought it on Facebook, everyone was like, what? Thundercats game when? So when I saw it on eBay for about $3, I said, I need it now. I don't care if it's bad. It is not great. I got my $3 worth. And since I'm trying to get a complete Metroid collection, this brings me one step closer to completing that goal. Metroid Prime Pinball. And the version I have comes with the Rumble Pack for the DS. And then there's PSP, which I really haven't been finding a whole lot of games for, which is kind of sad because I love my PSP. Jackass the Game, Metal Gear Acid, and Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. So let's get into the PS2. Half Price Books had a warehouse sale, and I went over there just to see what they had, and they had like 4 tables filled with games, and it was all disc-based. They didn't have anything cartridge at all. It was all like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 games. There was a few GameCube games, a few Wii games. I didn't find anything for those consoles, but when it comes to the PS2 and the Xbox, yeah, I ended up getting at least 30 games for those things. Damn. Twisted Metal Head-On, which is a port of the PSP game, Dynasty Warriors 4 and the add-on Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires, Makai Kingdom, Chronicles of the Sacred Tome, which is a strategy RPG, Backyard Wrestling 2, There Goes the Neighborhood. By buying this, does that make me a juggalo?
Boom, pow, bang, let's do the damn thing!
Medal of Honor European Assault, Dragon Ball Z Budokai, Stuntman Ignition, Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian, Top Gun Combat Zones, the original Burnout, The Golden Compass, Call of Duty World at War Final Fronts, EverQuest Online Adventures. I know I cannot play this game anymore. The servers are completely offline, but I did play this when it first came out along with a couple of my very good friends, and we had a blast doing so, even though the friends of ours who play the real EverQuest on PC would always give us crap for playing this like light version or this watered down version of their sacred game. Why people could kick and have that be a free move, and that being a point of contention, I always thought was extremely silly. Rob, you're an idiot. But this was the first experience I ever had with an MMO, and while I never got as into it as my other friends did, You know, they created their own guilds and stuff like that and had multiple characters. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I think we played this for almost a year before I got sick of it and just decided to just cancel my account. This was a really fun time where I was playing a different type of a game, something that I'd never played before. It was completely new to me, and I had a blast. And this version is like completely complete. It even comes with like game cards for 30 days of prepaid play. Good times. Mobile Light Force 2, which is actually part of the Castle Shikigami series, just for some reason renamed over here. Whatevs. Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. Fire Pro Wrestling returns. The Red Star, which is as close to an awesome Contra game as you're going to get without it having being developed by Konami. Star Wars Bounty Hunter, where you get to play as Jango Fett. Whoopee! Stretch Panic, which was developed by Treasure! Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. Neo Contra, which is the other PlayStation 2 Contra game out there, aside from Shattered Soldier, which is awesome. Neo Contra is okay. It is not nearly as good as Shattered Soldier because the people who made this game decided to go back to kind of what Legacy of War was like, where it was just kind of all over the place. Instead of it being a side-scrolling shooter, this one is very 3D where you're running around in all different directions and shit. It's all right. And Dark Cloud. And I also found a ton of Xbox games at that Half-Price Books warehouse sale. Gunmetal, Star Wars Republic Commando, Lord of the Rings The Third Age, which is the first actual role-playing game in the Lord of the Rings universe. Call of Duty Finest Hour, the first game in the series, the one that started it all, and was actually really well respected at the beginning, and now it is the lightning rod of hate for the first-person shooter community. Army Men, Sarge's War, Project Gotham Racing 2, Superman the Man of Steel, which is probably the better Superman game released during this time, Van Helsing. It's better than the movie. MTV Music Generator 3. I was not a fan of the second game in the series. You know I was a huge fan of the first. But I haven't even opened this one yet. I found it brand new at that warehouse sale. Medal of Honor Rising Sun, Driver, Parallel Lines, Bloodwake, and Phantasy Star Online Episodes 1 and 2. Another game that I probably will not be able to play ever because the servers are down and have been for some time. Outrun 2, which you already know I love because I talked about it in my Diamonds in the Rough for the Xbox video. Spawn Armageddon, which is probably the best Spawn game ever made. Scarface, The World Is Yours, which kind of took a cue from the Godfather game that was released during this time period, where it turned a classic gangster movie into an open world game. And they did the same with Scarface, and you know what is actually pretty cool? Phantom Dust, which is like an RPG with card battling, and SSX 3. And the Xbox game that I was so happy to finally add to my collection because it is very high priced at the moment, Futurama. Yeah, the Futurama game is one of the more expensive Xbox games. Don't ask me why, but it is actually a very fun game based on the cartoon. Ever since buying my new Xbox 360, I've been playing it a lot because I couldn't play it for so long because it was on the verge of crapping out for about 3 years, which kind of sucked. So now that I'm actually able to be playing these games again, I'm really loving it. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have a working 360 again like no one's business. So yeah, I've gone out of my way to find as many awesome 360 games as I possibly can to add to the collection. The Wheelman, which stars Vin Diesel. What? The original Risen, which means that I have all 3 games in this series for the 360 now, and I can play them at my leisure and go from one to the next without having to worry about missing any story. When I will have time to do that, who knows? Green Lantern, Rise of the Manhunters, Aliens vs. Predator. Got this Xbox 360 triple pack, which features 3 of the games that were only available as digital downloads on one disc, which is Trials HD, Limbo, and Splosion Man, which I love. Actually, I love all 3 of these games. Also got these games on the Square Enix website clearance sale, the Hitman HD Trilogy, and Supreme Commander 2, as well as Final Fantasy XIII and Final Fantasy XIII-2, which prompted me to buy Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns. And this is the Target exclusive Steelbook edition. Prototype, Golden Axe Beast Rider. Split Second, Call of Juarez, Bound in Blood. Lord of the Rings, War in the North, which is another RPG set in the Lord of the Rings universe. Transformers, Fall of Cybertron, which is the second game in the series. Dark Messiah, Might and Magic Elements. Rise of the Argonauts. I found a sealed copy of Vampire Reign at a Half-Price Books for $1. Sega Superstars Tennis, which is actually very fun. It's like Sega took Virtual Tennis and then added in all of their characters like Sonic, but there's characters from Jet Set Radio, Space Channel 5, Nights into Dreams, Choo Choo Rocket, and Super Monkey Ball. Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires, which is the add-on for Dynasty Warriors 5. Dynasty Warriors Strike Force, which is actually a futuristic version of Dynasty Warriors. The original Dark Souls, and the original Onichanbara Samurai Bikini Squad. I did find quite a few Wii games that were worthwhile. Castlevania Judgment, which takes all the Castlevania characters you know and love and throws them into a fighting game. Controlling this with that little Wiimote is not an easy task, I tell you. But for what it is not bad. There's really cool remixes of all the music you might know from all the past Castlevania games. Getting to see a lot of your favorite characters realized in 3D is pretty cool, and getting them to fight in an arena is amusing. It's not the greatest game ever made, but it could have definitely been a lot worse. Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, which actually should have been called Donkey Kong Motion Control Madness because... Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Ninja Bread Man. Yes, Ninja Bread Man. Muramasa the Demon Blade, which is an awesome game by Vanillaware. Attack of the Movies 3D, which is basically just a light gun game that you use the Wiimote to shoot at the screen. Dewey's Adventure from Konami, which is a really unique and fun puzzle platformer adventure game, but it's made by the people who created Elebits, so that's saying something since Elebits is one of the best Wii games out there. And I also haven't found too many PlayStation 3 games, but what I got is pretty cool. Dynasty Warriors 6. Game of Thrones, which was released by Atlas. It's not the greatest thing ever made, but I'm a fan of Game of Thrones, so I said, yeah, I think I kind of need it.
You a fan of the Pikachu?
Terminator Salvation. Hate the movie. Game's not that great either. Doom 3, the BFG edition, which is basically a remaster of Doom 3 for the PS3, and this also came out for the 360, but the reason I wanted this was not for Doom 3, which I do enjoy. I loved it on the Xbox. I wanted this because it has Doom 1 and Doom 2 in its entirety. The original PC games, which makes it worth the price alone. Dragon Age Origins Ultimate Edition, which actually has Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age Origins Awakening. To have the original game, its add-on, and all of its DLC together on one disc is the way to go. Metal Gear Solid: The Legacy Collection. If you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, ooh, this is like boner fuel.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
So what's on here, you ask? The original Metal Gear, and I do believe it is the MSX version. Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, which is the MSX version. Metal Gear Solid VR missions, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid Band Destiny, or whatever the hell it's called, I can't read it, it's in a different language. And Metal Gear Solid 2 Banded Destiny. Quite a deal. I found this at a GameStop of all places for about $20. Best $20 I ever spent. And now for the current gen systems. When it comes to the Xbox One, I'm still not entirely pleased with the console. I don't like how it takes like hours to install one single game when the PS4 does it like within 30 seconds. I don't understand where that disconnect is in between. I mean, I mostly just use my Xbox One to stream HBO Go since my PS4 won't do it. So the only game I've purchased for the Xbox One recently is the new Doom, which is actually Doom 4. Play through this whole thing in about a week. It is awesome. I mean, it would have been awesome on any console. I have not played a first-person shooter that is this crazy in a long time. Like, this is non-stop action all the time. Actually, the point of the game is to never stop moving because once you do, you will die. There are these glory kills which seem kind of stupid and gimmicky at the beginning of the game, but you realize just how important they are the further you get, where you will get an enemy down to a low amount of health and they will start to glow, and then you can like go up and kill them face to face in increasingly disgusting ways, like ripping their jaws open, and it will give you more health, more ammo. It is an amazingly impressive game. The only thing that sucks about it is, aside from the online multiplayer, which I hear is god-awful, is the ending, which is very anticlimactic and is just a 1-minute cutscene that leads into a sequel. But with Nintendo announcing that they are going to discontinue the Wii U within the next year, it really upset me because there's some good stuff out there for it. It's disappointing that they're just bailing on it so soon. And with that came the greatest hits collection that Nintendo tends to do at the end of their console's lifespan. And I hate that shit. If I want to buy a copy of a game, it had better be the original version. I don't like having that discounted, greatest hits logo stamped all over it, and just, I can't stand it. So when they decided to release their greatest hits, I went out and bought as many of those games that I wanted in their non-greatest hits form. The NES Remix Pack, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, Rhodia, the Sky Soldier, which I wanted to get because they were going to re-release this game without the original Wii version that we never got over here. And the Wii version is actually the superior version of this game, so there's that. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, which when was released was the buggiest, glitchiest POS of all time, and essentially killed the Sonic franchise. After the failure of this game, Sega decided to, we're not going to make console games anymore, we're just going to make mobile stuff. And I've played some of their mobile games and they are terrible. Like Crazy Taxi, really? That's all you could come up with for that license? Since then, they have updated the game, they have patched it, and while it is still not the greatest Sonic game ever, it is not nearly as bad as I believe it once was. I wanted to have it because I do like Sonic. And of course I had to have a physical copy of Shovel Knight, which was my favorite game of 2014 for good reason. It is extremely awesome, but I'm not a fan of digital downloads, and I wanted to play this game so bad I was willing to forego that rule of mine in order to play it, and I was pleasantly surprised. But when it was announced that it was going to be released on physical media, of course I jumped at it. It comes with a free copy of the soundtrack, which is awesome BitTunes amazingness. And if you want, you can also get a Shovel Knight amiibo, which unlocks 2-player mode, which I do have. Give me your money! Star Fox Zero! And people are absolutely hating on this game because of the stupid control scheme where you have to use the gamepad and hold it out in front of you as if it is like your control panel in the R-Wing. You have to honestly be sitting in like a swivel chair to play this game because it's all motion control. You have to be looking in the actual direction where you want to shoot. It's kind of terrible, but there is an option to turn that off and just use the control pad like a regular controller, which people seem to be forgetting. And when you play it like that, the game is not that bad. But the main reason I wanted to get this was this came with an extra game. Star Fox Guard, which is its own separate game. Haven't opened it yet. I really want to try it. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but everyone tells me it is actually better than Star Fox Zero. And the big release that came out recently for the Wii U is something which I'm not a very big fan of. I hate this re-releasing HD versions of shit. Just create a brand new game for crying out loud, will ya? Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. I really enjoyed Twilight Princess. I mean, now I own it for the Wii, I own it for the GameCube, and now I own it for the Wii U. I obviously like it a lot. The main reason I wanted this was because it comes with this really awesome amiibo of Wolf Link. And lastly is the PS4, which is, out of all of the current consoles, my favorite. Resident Evil 6, which is an HD remaster of the last generation's version, and it comes with all the DLC already added in, and supposedly fixes a lot of the problems people had with it. I'm not a fan of these new remastered versions, like I say, but since I never bought Resident Evil 6 to begin with for the last generation, this is not a big deal to me. So I finally have like the complete version and did not have to shell out for DLC and a broken game to begin with. Thief, which I got from the discount sale on the Square Enix website. I actually just got this yesterday. I've been trying to buy Until Dawn, which is like an interactive B-horror movie video game, for a long time, and it's just, I'm not willing to pay $60 a lot of times for certain games where I'm iffy on if I'm going to like it or not. So I've been waiting for this to discount, and then randomly out of nowhere, Amazon discounted this to like $14, so I snapped it up while I could. Godzilla, the special edition of Uncharted 4, which I already played through and beat. I love the first game. I absolutely adore the second. Thought the third game was okay. This one is up there with part 2. The storytelling, the acting by the motion capture actors is phenomenal. The platforming, while is basically the same, is just as fun as it always has been. It introduces new characters that I love, and it just caps off the series in such a great way. And it's just, I'm sad to see these characters go. There are plenty of ways they can spin off the series if they want. I'm not going to ruin them if you haven't played through the game yet, but there's plenty of ways they can do it if they want to keep making Uncharted-ish games. This special edition comes in this nice box, comes with a great art book, and the game in a really rad steel box. Some like stickers and stuff, and like a couple of points for online play. But out of all of the games I own for my PS4, this is my favorite so far. It is such a great game. Proves that Naughty Dog, even when they are having issues internally, where like the person who directed the last 3 games in the series just quit when they're starting to work on this one, that they have some of the best people in the business working for them, and they know how to make a great story and great characters and weave it in with some fun-ass gameplay. Mighty Number 9, which is quite the lightning rod of hate at the moment. I had no expectations for it since I'm not the greatest Mega Man fan out there. I mean, I appreciate the series for what it is, but I mean, it was never my favorite series, and it is what it is. I mean, it is similar to Mega Man. It is not a Mega Man game, which I think what everyone was expecting it to be. I mean, it feels like Mega Man. It plays a little bit like Mega Man, but it is not Mega Man. This is not a Mega Man game. It has its own mechanics where you have to like steal energy from your opponents in order to power yourself up and stuff like that. Once people start to realize that and get over it, I think they'll find out that, I mean, while it is not the best thing ever made, it is not bad. It is actually kind of fun. I'm enjoying it so far. And I had to buy this next one just because. Dead or Alive Extreme 3 Fortune. Yeah, when I play these games, I do feel kind of voyeuristic, but it's kind of like just this harmless thing because there's really nothing going on in this game except like some BS mini games. But if you're interested in like non-stressful, light gameplay, something that's just you can sit down and play with, you're turning your brain off and just enjoy, this is for you. And of course, Limited Run Games is still releasing physical versions of games that were only available through digital means. I completely missed out on the last release that they did, which was for Octodad. That game never really appealed to me to begin with, so I wasn't going to rush out and try to get a copy of it if I could. In fact, I totally forgot about the sell-through day. So I never got a copy of it, and I probably never will, but I'm okay with that. But I did get the last two releases. Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, New and Tasty, which is like an HD remaster of the original Oddworld game, which I love. Futuridium Extended Play Deluxe, which is kind of like this really weird psychedelic version of the original Star Fox. I also managed to get a hold of the PS Vita version of it because it looked so unique. I really wanted to be able to play it on the go if I had the opportunity to do so. I really hope they get around to getting the license for Axiom Verge. Limited release games, Axiom Verge, please. And that is it for this pickups video. God damn, that is still quite a lot of games. Not as much as in the previous one where I had to split it into 2 videos, but damn, that's a lot of shit. And now I'm officially on collecting hiatus, so there'll probably not be another collection video until probably October or November. Unless I decide to make one just basically off of the Gen Con pickups I get, if there are any at all. Because we never know, it's an unpredictable thing. So please give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see. Share the video on social media if you possibly can. Help spread the retro gamer love. And please leave any and all comments below. Do you own any of these games? What are your thoughts on them if you do? What games do you think I need to look for to add to my collection for all these different consoles? Let me know. I try to answer each and every comment if I can. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I mean, why not? You're watching it right now. It's one button click. Boom, and you're into the old-ass retro gamer world. Welcome. So until next time, I am Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, signing off. Dark Messiah, Might and Magic. Wow. Doom 3, the BFG edition. Blah, blah, blah.